Big moves coming for the Broncos. Let's talk. There's a rumor swirling around. Could the Denver Broncos be gearing up for a major move in NFL free agency? The unofficial action kicks off this Monday, with teams allowed to talk to players' agents. By Wednesday, when the new league year begins, contracts can finally be signed. I recently came across an article on NFL.com listing teams that might make a bold splash in free agency, and guess what? The Broncos were on that list. The idea is that Denver could shake things up with a big signing or two. According to the article, the Broncos need to strengthen their offense. Their tight end situation needs improvement, and they could also use a running back to take pressure off their young quarterback. The report suggests someone versatile, like J.K. Dobbins, who can both run the ball and catch passes, similar to how Alvin Kamara thrived under coach Sean Payton in New Orleans. But here's where I disagree. I don't see the Broncos making flashy moves in free agency, not with the current options available. However, there's another factor to consider. As we get closer to free agency, teams are cutting players to free up space. Just recently, the Jets moved on from Davante Adams, and the Seahawks let go of Draymond Jones. So, while the free agency pool looks one way today, it could look very different by next week. The real question is, will the Broncos take advantage of these unexpected opportunities? Will the Broncos make a big move? Here's why I have doubts. Free agency is always unpredictable. Teams are making roster cuts, and suddenly new names pop up, players we didn't even consider a few weeks ago. But as things stand right now, I don't see how the Broncos pull off a major signing. The positions they need help in? This just isn't the right free agency market for them. Take Davante Adams, for example. Big name, elite talent. Some fans might want the Broncos to go after him, but let's be real, I don't see it happening. Wherever Aaron Rodgers ends up, Adams will probably follow. And to me, that means one of three places: the Giants, the Titans, if they decide to go with a veteran QB, or he waits for a mid-season injury and steps in then. Now, could Denver be an option? Technically, sure. But when Adams thinks of the West Coast, he's not thinking of Denver. He's thinking of a place with a bear on its flag. Yeah, California. So, where does that leave the Broncos? Their two biggest needs are tight end and running back. If there was a tight end worth making a splash for, it'd be a different story. But look at the free agent market. It's thin. Are we really diving headfirst into this shallow pool? Juwan Johnson? Maybe. Zach Ertz? Probably staying in Washington. Mike Gesicki? Cincinnati sees him as part of their future. So, sure, the Broncos could throw a pile of money at someone, but would it be worth it? Do they really want to make a big move just to say they made one? To me, that's not how you build a winning team. Should the Broncos make a splash move? Maybe, but not in free agency. If there's a player out there worth a massive contract, one that would make everyone say, "Wow, that's a big move," I just don't see him in free agency. A trade, though, that might be a different story. Take Kyle Pitts from Atlanta, for example. Now that would be a splash move, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons considered moving on from him. Pitts had a 1,000-yard rookie season, but since then, his production has dipped. Maybe a fresh start is exactly what he needs. If the Broncos could get him at the right price, it could be a win for both sides. But as for free agency, I don't see a big-name tight end worth breaking the bank for. That's why I believe the real solution for Denver is in the draft, not free agency. And this year's draft class, it's stacked with tight end talent. Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, these guys could be the first tight ends taken in round 1 since 2019, when Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson were selected. So, if you're the Broncos, why overpay for an average free agent when you can draft a future star? Just signing players to massive contracts just to say you did, that's not smart team building. That's desperation. Now, let's talk about running backs. Could the Broncos actually make a big move at that position? That's where things get interesting. Will the Broncos make a big move at running back? Let's be real. If we're talking about running backs, there are definitely bigger names available than at tight end. Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, J.K. Dobbins, some solid talent right there. But let's be honest, none of these guys are at the same level as last year's free agent stars like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, or Derrick Henry. One name that came up in the NFL.com report? J.K. Dobbins. Now, props to him. He had an incredible season with the Chargers after struggling with injuries in Baltimore. The Chargers took a chance on a guy who had a tough time staying healthy, and it paid off. He racked up 95 yards per game, missed a few weeks, and still put up 9 touchdowns. But here's the thing. I don't see the Chargers letting him go. Why would they? After finally getting a full season from him, it wouldn't make sense to just let him walk. So, I wouldn't put much hope in that move. Now, Aaron Jones? That's a different story. He's got versatility, solid in the run game, dangerous as a receiver. The only downside? He's over 30, and for some teams, that's a red flag. Nick Chubb is another option. If Denver wants a powerhouse running back, he could be a target. 2 years removed from injury, he might be getting back to his old self. But here's the catch. He's not the type of player Sean Payton is looking for. Payton wants a joker, a dual-threat playmaker, someone who can change the game with both speed and versatility. And Chubb, as good as he is, doesn't really fit that mold. So that brings us back to the real question. If the Broncos are going to make a major splash, where would it be? Honestly, the only position I could see them making a bold move for is linebacker. Maybe they throw big money at a guy like Zach Bond from the Eagles. That would count as a splash. But at running back, tight end? I just don't see it. The Broncos need help, but a big splash? Not so fast. If the Broncos are going to spend big money anywhere, I think it should be at linebacker. It's pretty clear they're looking to reshape that position. Maybe they decide to move on from Alex Singleton. He's got 1 year left on his deal and is coming off a torn ACL. Maybe they go bigger than Cody Barton and target someone like Zach Bond. But when it comes to running back and tight end, forget free agency. The draft is loaded with talent at both positions. The smart move? Use those early picks wisely. Let's say you grab Colston Loveland in round 1. Boom, your tight end problem is solved. Then, in round 2, you go after a running back like Caleb Johnson. Or maybe you flip it. Take Ashton Jeanty first, then Harold Fannin Jr. in the second round. Either way, that's a much better solution than just throwing money at the problem. Spending for the sake of spending. That never works. It's like trying to fix everything by just throwing cash around. Doesn't really solve the core issue. And when it comes to free agency, the Broncos aren't exactly diving into a deep pool here. It's more like a kiddie pool, not exactly worth the splash. Now, before we wrap up, let's have some fun. Think of a random Broncos free agent bust. Got a name in mind. All right, let's see if we're thinking of the same guy. 3, 2, 1. Jarvis Green. Yep, signed to a 4-year deal, never played a single game, and got cut before the season even started. Classic move by Josh McDaniels. Of course, if we're talking biggest busts, the real winner, or loser, has to be Jawan James. The guy got a massive contract, barely played, and injuries only made things worse. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in.